The Wests Tigers podcast is brought to you by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the conversation today at weststigerspodcast.com.au.
It's the West Tigers podcast, and according to the log, it's episode number 436, which is a big number. And Nick is here, and Declan is here. First podcast for a while, boys. It's been holiday time, hasn't it? We've been getting that 2025 season out of the way, taking a little break. Is anybody missing the West Tigers being in action? Declan, how are you going with the off season so far?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I particularly miss the Tigers playing. I think I'm going to miss the NRL. That grand final we just watched was really, really good. And even though Madge ended up winning the Premiership, I think just seeing Stefano on the sideline looking really dishevelled was, chef kiss. So yeah, I think like going out on a high like that, it did make me kind of miss the footy. And I don't know, something about the naming of the squads for the international games, it makes me hope that this international season isn't going to be a snore fest like last year was. So yeah, a bit cautious, but I think when the team comes back to training and you see like the photos and the new kit, the new merchandise, that'll get me excited for the Tigers to come back. But at the moment, I think I'm doing like all right because there's still a little bit of footy to come. But yeah, I'm sure the messing the Tigers will come very soon.
I've written down here relaxing. Like if I have to put one word forward for this time of the year, it's relaxing. We're not going through that Sunday afternoon or Saturday night anxiety that we all feel. Nick, how are you experiencing it? The only thing I would say is that I really liked the way that we played some football this year. And I look at the 2026 team and I'm starting to think, we could have some good things to look forward to.
Hopefully, Joel. Good to talk to you boys again. I will give you one word. My word's probably hibernation because I kind of feel like a grizzly bear that's just climbed into the hole under the cave for 6 months. So what are we, 6 or so weeks into West Tigers not playing, and I'm actually enjoying it. I'm just enjoying. Anxiety levels are low, stress levels are low. So, for me, it's a good time of year. But Declan's right. It was a cracking grand final. I didn't particularly like either of the teams that made the grand final. However, as a spectacle itself, it was pretty good. Got to give full credit to Broncos. The way they played the whole final series, came from behind. They were written off probably several times across most of those 4 games and managed to climb out of a hole. Reece Walsh was an absolute freak, so very impressive. But yeah, from a Tigers front, looking forward to the timeout. Obviously keeping an eye on the news as it drips feeds through, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But yeah, I'm not getting too excited just yet. I'm just enjoying, mid-October, Joel, at the moment. So lots of time until we start thinking about trial games and who's potentially going to be in that team.
Yeah, well, we haven't even hit summer yet, so there's still a long way in front of us. So make the most of it while you can. One thing that did spike my interest a little bit and make me start thinking a little bit about that 2026 season is the signing of Bunty Afoa. Only a 1-year deal. Bunty's played 145 games over 10 years for the Warriors. They call him a cult hero, which, is always good to use in your marketing and that type of thing. I'm sure he'll be a fan favourite with the West Tigers as well. He's 29, very much an impact forward off the bench. Declan, if there's one thing we spoke about consistently in 2025, it was physicality, it was impact, it was winning the forward collision. You can kind of see that the signing of Bunty Afoa for 12 months shows that that's what the club is thinking as well.
Yeah, especially when we had injuries. Like as soon as, Finipole or like someone else, when Hunt was out of the team due to his poor form, like we were looking really, really skinny in that front row rotation. I think like having like Charlie Murray there playing as many minutes as he did probably showed you we did need to make a signing. And I really like Afoa for the sense that, he's only 29 years old. Like he didn't play much first grade this year, but, the Warriors won New South Wales Cup. So he was playing for the best team in reserve grade. His stats didn't look amazing, but I think just like for the job we want him to do, like just plugging in, playing 20 minutes here and there, and when there's an injury, because like ideally you wouldn't want him in the first grade team when we're fully fit, because you've still got Sione, Pole, Terrell May, Twal. So we've still got guys I think would be ahead of him. But as soon as there's an injury, like you're pretty happy and you're pretty confident that he can come in and do a job. And then hopefully we can get a little bit more out of Hunt as well, because I know there was a little bit of talk that he was free to look elsewhere, but it looks like he's going to be with us for next year. So if we can get more out of Hunt, and then if Bunty Afoa comes in, then suddenly our front row depth looks pretty good. And combine that with our halves depth as well, and I think we've made some good second row signings. And then, obviously we've got like a little bit of competition for the centres. I think the whole squad is looking a lot more deep than it was this time last year. So if we have some injuries, maybe we'll be able to still play a decent level of footy next year.
I was having a look at the stats, Nick, and Terrell May, he played on average 73 minutes per game. Like, it's an unusual prop rotation when you've got somebody who's as consistent and plays as many minutes as Terrell May. But then you look at, okay, you start maybe with a Sione Fainu as his front row partner. Off the bench, it gives you the option of, I'm going best case scenario here. You've got Hunt in good shape. You've got Bunty Afoa in good shape. And you've got also Whenua Pole. Like, that's a lot of potential impact off the bench.
Yeah, it is. You know what? I haven't seen a great deal of Bunty, especially recently. I know, like you said, he's played a bit of cup this season, but he's a big boy, and if we can get a lot of impact out of him, that's exactly what we need. And we've spoken about the need for a bit more impact in the forwards, and as you just mentioned, Terrell's been playing huge minutes, which you can keep doing that, or Terrell would probably want to keep doing that, but at some point you've got to reduce them a bit, and to do that, you do need to supplement it with a bit more, punch off the bench. So Bunty's only going to add to that, and exactly what you said, Whenua Pole, hopefully he can have a really good season or pre-season and work on some of his deficiencies. And I know he spoke about defence being one of those deficiencies. We all know what he can do in attack, and he's very dangerous on his feet at the line. So I think Bunty's going to be a good addition. I know that there's been another rumour floating around about the possibility of another forward from Manly coming over, who we'll probably mention a little bit later. But Declan, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just thought with Terrell, especially towards the end of the season, I think we might have pushed him a little bit too far in terms of his minutes. Like, obviously, his Terrell's fitness is, one of his strengths, but it's not like he's paying Haas where he can, play 80 minutes and then, he's still making those barnstorming runs. Like, I think that sometimes like him playing that long did take away his ball carry, which, isn't ideal. Ideally, if you're going to play 80, you need to still be able to, do both. So I would just love it if he played like 60 or 65 minutes because we had, as you guys say, the depth to take him off, rest him. But then we see that real good like ball carrying play, that like tucking it between the arms as well, like breaking tackles, like really working on his ball carrying, so that and he doesn't have to worry about how he has to play like the full 80. So he's conserving his like energy for defense. No, he knows that he's only playing 60 minutes, so he can really go a little bit more intense when he's actually on the field.
I wonder what it's going to be like having Bunty completing a preseason in Australia over the summer months. And if you listen to the Terrell May podcast where he had Benji on for the hour and talked about a lot of things, Benji made it pretty clear he was going to flog them even harder this off season. So Bunty's going to be in for December in Concord being flogged around. It's going to be maybe potentially an eye opener.
Yeah, but I'd rather be there than like a December in Wakefield in the Super League. So I'd rather take Sydney, to be fair. So
yeah. The other thing that it brings up is maybe if buying more props, at least one more prop, which we've done with Bunty Afoa, Nick, it means that maybe Twal is going to be that 13, that he's going to be out. He's clearly not being, well, you'd say that he's clearly not being marked for the prop rotation, and he did quite well at lock in the second half of the 2025 season. Is that the way you see it?
At this stage, yes, and unless we go out and sign an out-and-out lock, which I'm not sure if we will. But I actually think that they're probably, or Benji's possibly thinking that way already. So yeah, Twal did a pretty good job at 13, and he wasn't too bad at being that distributor either. So I don't see why, Twally can't start it in that 13 jersey. And I think the priority probably should be adding a bit more punch around that forward pack, as we mentioned, and whether we need another back rower or not, probably wouldn't hurt. I know we've got Kai Paul coming, and I'm very curious to see how he fits in to our West Tigers side, and Benji's game plan and style of play. So I did keep an eye on him across that back half of this season for the Knights, but wasn't all that impressed. However, a lot of that comes down to the team that he's playing for as well and who's around him. So yeah, there's some good times coming, hopefully. A few changes, the changes that we were hoping, look like the club's working on that already. So fingers crossed we can add a little bit more starch before we see round one, 2026.
I would say Kai Paul, Declan, when I watched him through 25, consistent is the word that comes to mind. He's not the most, he doesn't necessarily stand out, but every week you pretty much get a consistent performance from him. And I think he's got that right side second row spot to lose at this point. That would be my feeling.
Yeah, I think that he's been signed to play on that right edge. I think that's where he's going to slot in next year. And I agree with you, Joe. I think he's probably a little bit underrated in the sense that, he doesn't really miss tackles. He reads defensive plays really well. And like to the casual fan, like the second row position is a position that makes a lot of these decisions, like that have an impact on how other people react as well. So like having someone like that in the position, and I know like Alex Seyfarth have tried his best, but he's a middle forward, like an impact middle forward coming off the bench at the moment. So he's like, ideally, it was never an ideal situation to go into the season with Alex Seyfarth as a starting second rower. So I think that Kai Paul, he brings that really good base with him, but then he's also got the X factor as well, where he's a big body. We can give him early ball. I think he can hit a line as well. He can offload it as well. And he's still only like 24, 25 as well. So he's got a lot of upside. He's like that in that Terrell May bracket where, he's broken into the NRL. He's found his feet and now he's ready to skyrocket. So I'm really excited to see how he goes. Hopefully, I'm not sure if he's in the England setup. So it'll be interesting to see what he looks like with other rep players around him when they play Australia. And hopefully he doesn't pick up any injuries. But I think that it's going to be a really good option in attack just to have, like we pretty much have like two complete edges now because you've got like, obviously like Samuel Fainu, and then, you look at Terrell May, Taruva Skeldon, and then Stafford Toa is like playing well on that right side as well. But then we add another kind of strike player who can hit that short ball. We're suddenly looking like we can score from both edges. Yeah. And that's something that's going to be really good to see next season. And hopefully we hit the ground running in terms of like attacking cohesion because, it's really good. And I honestly can't remember us being this well balanced for a really long time.
Just thinking about forwards, Declan, we've got a couple of new players, Kai Paul and Bunty coming across. Where does this leave Alex Seyfarth? It's an interesting conversation because we re-signed him for quite a long time. I'm pretty sure his contract is through to 2028, so he's on the books for extended period. Does he go into prop rotation, or do we talk about put him in the cup? Like, what do we do with him?
Well, it's interesting because Benji actually started him in the last round against the Titans. So I think that he is quite well rated internally. And he was actually playing Prime Minister 13 this time last year when he was coming off the bench. So I don't have any doubts that he can play a role there. But like, would I like lock him into a bench spot rotation now at prop? Probably not. I think I would like to see him compete with everyone else to see how it goes. But I think he would be like pretty good money to get one of those bench spots for next year, which I think is good because it just adds more depth and competition. Because I think we can all agree that someone like Fanupoli probably did struggle this year, even when he was coming off the bench. But we just didn't really have anyone to replace him with, so we just kind of had to keep him going. But he probably should have ideally had a stint in the reserve grade to like gain his confidence, play bigger minutes. But we just couldn't do it. So hopefully guys like him, Alex Seyfarth, Sione Fanua as well. Sione Fainu. Like hopefully they like kind of all bring the best out of each other, and it's a good competition for spots.
You've got Maverick Geyer in the mix as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how his season works out with the Tigers as well, Declan.
Yeah, and Ethan Roberts is another one we've signed from
Yeah,
the Roosters, and I haven't really seen much from him play, but he was the next big thing a few years ago when he was
100%.
playing SG ball.
Yep.
And sometimes I heard from a few Bunnies fans when the Roosters they know they're losing a player, they often shelve them. So that's probably why he was playing a lot of flag this year because they knew he was leaving. So I reckon he's someone that we could see like come out of nowhere to make a first grade debut because he was quite heavily rated in the junior system. So he's clearly got plenty of upside in him.
And you've got Phoenix Godinez, who's a potential as well for later in the year to make a debut, and will certainly, you would think, figure more prominently in 2027. But our stocks in the back row all of a sudden look quite good, which is quite a turnaround. Just in regards to Seyfarth, I mean, Benji is a big fan of his, but if we're buying guys like Afoa, then maybe our thought is that he becomes more of a guy that you call on when you have some injuries and is not necessarily a starter. I just don't think he adds enough consistent impact when we've got other guys that are in that same ballpark. So it's finding that right balance, Declan.
Yeah, I just think that in the modern game, you just need that mobility in the middle as well. If you look at like the grand final that just happened, that Reece Walsh try that he scored by himself, although it was like amazing. If you look what actually happened, it was their middle ball playing 13. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. Had that inside ball to who was it? Kobe Hetherington, who managed to get between defenders, quick play of the ball, took out the markers. Reece Walsh just had so much space to get to the A defenders on each side, and that like was one of the things that like swung the game in their favor. Just these mobile forwards who can move quickly, who can cover a lot of ground really quickly, and who are skillful enough to find a space with a pass. So although like obviously you're right, Joe, like rugby league, you're always going to need impact and size and power, which is what Bunty Afoa does. I just think that someone like Alex Seyfarth is kind of ideal to fill that position as well off the bench when the like either side of halftime when the speed of the game is really quick. You need big forwards who can cover the ground, and that's why I think that someone like Seyfarth in today's modern game, he keeps finding himself on these benches because he does bring that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
It is nice to think that Alex Seyfarth could potentially be fighting for a bench spot rather than a starting spot.
Yeah,
now, like I like him. I love him at times. Sometimes I don't like him so much. But as a bench player, I think that's probably a better fit for us going forward. If we can supplement or improve on what he brought to a starting team and have him come in for shorter periods when needed, I think that's our best solution going forward.
I'm not sure that Seyfarth is a starter at any NRL team, to be honest. And so the bench becomes an option. I mean, the other thing is, does this place a question mark over Royce Hunt, Declan? Is this, are we going to click on a member's email in the next couple of weeks and Royce Hunt has retired or moved to the Super League or moved on? I just don't know why we need two guys that pretty much bring the same thing.
Look, I think that it's pretty obvious that, if Royce Hunt was to find a better deal, the club would let him, look for other opportunities. I think that was the rumour towards the end of the season. I think the only thing is, like, I think he'd be on pretty good coin with us, and he'd be pretty keen to collect that because that would be his last big contract. So that would kind of limit his options. So he might just think that I'm just going to stay, dig my heels in, and that makes sense. But I think like Royce Hunt is just the kind of like the other side of the coin to what we were just talking about with Seyfarth. Like his back fence carries are probably like one of the best in the NRL. But unfortunately, there's just so much more to being a middle in today's game than just the back fence carries or like the big one-off carry one set. Like it's just repeated effort, and then you defend, and you just have to have that high energy, that high fitness, like pretty much the entire time you're on the field because there's no hiding in the middle. And he's just like that's just not his game, unfortunately. So in that sense, I think the game has kind of moved past him. And I think at Cronulla, it was the perfect situation because they had all those mobile forwards with depth that he could kind of just do that, 15-minute stint. But we just don't really have that squad. And so if he's going to play first grade, he's going to have to play more minutes. And even against the Titans, when like he scored 2 tries, everyone was cheering and saying how good's this. Like I still saw those red flag defensive efforts when he was fatigued that I just wouldn't be I'd be worried that he'd be a liability going into round one or whenever he played at this point in his career.
Back fence carries are great, Declan, but there's only so many you can do in 15 minutes, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which leads us into a discussion about a story that's the potential swap deal. But hey, maybe this might have gone by the wayside now that we've signed Bunty Afoa. But there was talk that Jack Bird was going to be going over the Spit Bridge to Manly, and Nathan Brown was coming home to the West Tigers. I think from memory, Nathan played one game, his debut game, a million years ago. I remember him going off like a complete idiot at Campbelltown against Canberra that night. I was there for that. That was a long
So,
time ago. That was, but
was that
what
a
do we think?
20s?
Yeah,
Was
that
that
was
the
20s
Toyota
against
Cup,
Canberra, yeah. But
yeah.
he debuted against the Dragons at the SFS the same time as Luke Brooks did in 2013. So yeah,
Wow.
they
That's a long time ago.
yeah.
What do we think? I mean, I'm of the opinion that I don't mind Jack Bird moving on. I don't know where Jack Bird fits in when I try and put our team together. He's not in the top 18 as far as I'm concerned for next year. And I don't mind the idea of having more impact. Everybody knows that I'm crazy about impact players, but if you've got Afoa, you've got Hunt. I just don't know where Nathan Brown would then fit into that combination. Nick, what are your thoughts? And is it a sign that probably Jack Bird is going to be elsewhere next year?
I think the writing was on the wall for Jack with how many rounds to go? Was it 4 or 6 rounds to go in the comp, and he just disappeared from our lineup, and he wasn't even mentioned in reserve. So I think writing was on the wall there. But I can't see Jack adding any more value, sadly, to maybe not even West Tigers, but I don't know where he would add at other clubs either, unless they need some maybe depth in the outside backs or potentially a half. But in regards to Nathan Brown, he had a lot of aggression and potential as a damaging forward when he was young, but his head was probably in a worse space than Alex Seyfarth in terms of his mentality. He just could not control his temper and his anger. But the thing I don't mind about Nathan Brown, and I know there was discussion around about a year ago that he was potentially, his name was being thrown around as potentially coming back to Tigers for a year or so. I don't mind if we bring him across for a year. I think he would add a bit of depth and a bit of aggression in that forward pack. And I think now that he's older, he's had a lot more life experiences, I think he'll be a little bit calmer on the field. I don't think he'll be as easily stirred as he was, 8, 9, 10 years ago, whenever it was. So I think there's some value there, at least to help our young forwards as well, because our pack is still pretty young. I really do forget about how old some of these guys like Fanua are at times, but I can only see that as a value signing. I know, Declan, you might have a different opinion, kind of smirking there.
Oh, sorry, unintentional. So I don't know. It's just so West Tigers because I think Nathan Brown, he's actually had a really good career,
Yeah.
and it probably not probably people wouldn't have expected it when he was with us in the under 20s, that he kind of went to South, played his trade, played kind of worked his way into a bench spot, then went to the Eels and really kicked off. They ended up playing Origin as well, so he's had a really great career. And then just in the twilight, he just comes back to the West Tigers when, it's pretty much all done and dusted. So, not only did we not get the best of him when he was younger, it's just so West Tigers it would come back and then just, not really have much of an impact. So, I remember when we played Manly the second time at Allianz, and I honestly forgot he was there. I have no recollection of him playing that game just because, their entire forward pack was flat. And I just think that for forwards, when your battery is low or nearly gone, it doesn't come back. When you no longer have that physicality, it's gone. Yes, I would like to, if Jack Bird had another opportunity elsewhere, I think that would be good to free up a roster spot. But I'm not that keen on kind of switching the deck chairs for two kind of similar players that it looks like their time in the NRL is coming to a close. I would much rather just keep Jack Bird for another swap deal, maybe another one that comes along, or just hold out powder dry, because I'm not sure how much Brown can really add at the moment to our team, especially if he had to play in first grade.
It's an interesting point that Nick made because it was also touched on in that interview Terrell May did with Benji Marshall and Benji really went to the defence of guys like Samuel Alafenu who really are only babies themselves, and we do have high expectations, and they've got a lot of pressure put on them. So some more experience is probably not a bad idea. And as you said, Declan, Kai Pearce-Paul is at a really good point in his career where he's just that little bit older. He's probably played somewhere around 150 senior games, so that'll be a good addition. If we don't do the deal, if Nathan Brown, if this is falls over, and you've got Jack Bird in the shop window, what position would you swap him for? What position, when you look at our roster now, do you say, well, if we're going to get rid of Jack Bird, we should bring in
A
because
lock.
a lock?
Yeah, because I think our outside backs are I'm pretty happy with our stock at the moment.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, we just signed Bunty Afoa at prop. You can never really have enough props, so I suppose I'd be happy with another forward who has a little bit more upside. And then second row, I think we're pretty set because, Kai Pearce-Paul and then Finu obviously are, they're going to be the starting locks. And then we've, at the starting second rows, and we've signed depth to kind of cover them as well. But the only thing we don't really have in the squad is that ball playing lock who can pass the ball and add that kind of extra option in attack, because unless Adam Dewey plays at 13, then he can obviously do that role. But with with Latu Finu, with that shoulder recall, he's going to have a disruptive preseason.
Yeah.
And then we played our best footy with Adam Dewey at 7. So are we going to try and outthink the room and play him at 13, or do we just say for the moment, this is a really important year. We need the experienced guy to play 7. So therefore, then 12 you're starting 13, and although that's good, he doesn't have that kind of extra dimension that the best 13s have at the moment. So that's the only position that I would jump out and try and grab at the moment if I could.
Jack Bird signed on to play 13. I remember this time last year, the media doing an interview on him when he was training on his own, in the heat, in the local park somewhere, and they asked him what his best position is, and he said 13. He said he wanted to get his fitness up so he could play 13, but that didn't last long during the season, did it? He played, I don't know how many games, and then was shuffled out back to the bench, played a little bit of centre, here and there. I think they might have thrown him in the back row at some point, but it just didn't work. Sadly, some players get to a point where they're probably a bit busted and they're past their best, or the game's gone past them. And I think, sadly for Jack, that's probably happened. So, I can't see him fitting into our team going forward.
Yeah, I think with Bird at 13, he just lacks the physicality that you need for that position, especially defensively, because although 13, it's now considered a member of the spine. They are still forwards, and you still need to have the ball carry, the defense, especially the defense. And I just remember, I think I've said it on the pod before, but I remember when we played the Eels the second game, was at Combank, and the sound that big Eels prop, the young one, I can't remember his name, sorry, made when he just run over Jack Bird, it was so loud, and it was just so kind of illuminating to the fact that he just can't defend in the middle, and he was coming off the bench as well. So starting is another big question as well, and he just doesn't have that at the moment.
What about is there a potential vulnerability or weakness there in terms of if you had a 14 that was like a real super sub, like a Connor Watson type that you could run on, he could play in the centres, he could play effectively in the halves, he could play at lock, he could play at hooker. Someone like that might be an addition to the squad when I look at the team. But then there's a lot of question marks. You've got Jock Madden in the mix. You've got, as you said, Declan Dewey's obviously going to start the year in the halves. And then you've got Latu coming back, and you've got young Haywood, the hooker, as well, who's probably going to be, part of the mix at some stage because Appy's not getting any younger. So there's still some question marks. Probably not as many question marks as this time last year, but certainly some question marks around the team.
Yeah, it's really annoying because the more I think about it, someone like Dylan Walker would have been absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And he just moved, he was on the market at this time, at the start of the season. And he could just be that perfect super sub because someone like Twile could start the game, at 13, and then Walker could come on and then, add all these things that we're talking about in terms of ball playing speed, footwork, stuff like that. And then he could obviously fill in other positions in terms of a utility perspective. But unfortunately he's at the Eels now, so we might have missed one there.
Okay, so let's just very quickly put it on the line then. So the Manly CEO calls Richo tomorrow morning. He says, "Yep, we'll do the deal. No money either way. They both got a 1 year deal. You have Jack Bird or you have Nathan Brown. Nick, who are you saying? Who do you want next year?
I'd be doing a swap.
You'd be
I'd
doing the
bring
swap?
Nathan Brown over. Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
Declan's thinking. His eyes are looking up. He's in deep thought.
Look, if I had to pick one or the other, I would go Nathan Brown
Yep.
because I don't think that Bird has the utility value anymore. So yeah, I'm gonna go Nathan Brown, but I'm not excited. It's not making my day,
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately. But
Who do you want
I
to watch
mean,
at Lidcombe next year?
exactly. But Nathan Brown, you put him straight onto the bench and he's going to add value
Yeah,
instantly.
yeah.
If you put Jack Bird on the bench, I still don't know where you play him. And
I
he's
can't
likely to
see
sit
him
on
in
the
our
bench for 80 minutes.
round
It's
one
just a
team.
waste.
Yep,
It's just a waste.
yep,
Sadly, it's a waste. Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so we'll wait and see what develops in regards to that. The awards night was held last week. Terrell May, the Kelly Barnes Award, so Players Player and Best West Tigers Player of the Year. Anybody didn't see that coming? Anybody is thinking that somebody else should have got it? Who were our other nominations, do you think? Nick, I
Alex
mean,
Seyfarth.
Jareem Buller?
Buller, Jerome Luai, for me, had a great season, especially where he came from, into a struggling team, just trying to find his feet and then eventually, I think, made it his own. He might have only scored one try in the regular season, but just his leadership qualities were massive
Yep.
and will only benefit our team going forward as well. If he can replicate that effort off the field during preseason again, going to the next year, hopefully that should only make us stronger again. But without a doubt, Terrell May, thoroughly deserves the full season. He played in the amount of minutes like we spoke about, and his effort was just massive. So, I think we all feel like he was hard done by to miss out on an Origin spot and other honours at Dally M, etc. But yeah, thoroughly deserved from a West Tigers club point of view.
yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that if Terrell had those stats at the Roosters, he would have been playing Origin. Like I don't
100%.
know, like if it's just the kind of perception around him that kind of made people hesitant to pick him, but it's just ridiculous because he was insane and he was so good that people kind of forgot how
Mm,
good he was because everyone just takes it for granted. It's kind of
mm,
like the James Tedesco
mm.
effect where you just kind of get used to a certain level of performance and then people kind of like don't appreciate it. But he was the anchor of that forward pack, and I'm very scared to think if he didn't sign for us, what this season would have looked like because that he not only in attack but also defensively he did a lot of clean up work.
Yep.
And then we got his brother as well playing at centre who made a massive difference. So he brings everything, doesn't he?
Yeah, I love Taylor May. Yeah, I can't wait to watch him again next season. But Declan, just touching on what you're talking about, if Terrell had have had those stats playing for the Roosters, it probably would have been a different story representative wise. What do you think would have happened if Stefano had have gone from the Tigers to either the Gold Coast or Newcastle? Do you reckon he would have played for New South Wales this year?
No.
I seriously don't think he would have been picked. And that's what really gives me the poops about the NRL is you get someone like Stefano who goes from a struggling team at West Tigers, plays with Melbourne Storm. All of a sudden, it's a Cinderella story from wooden spoon to premiership chance. Like the media jumps all over it, and the NRL just seems to love that stuff. But yeah, it's annoying that poor old Terrell went from a glamour club being at Sydney Roosters to West Tigers, played his butt off for the whole season, workload through the roof, massive minutes, had everyone talking about him, all the media talking about him, and didn't get anything in regards to rewards for his effort. So at least from outside of our club. So yeah, hopefully he can build again next year. And I know that Joel, you're talking about that pod that Benji did with Terrell, and
Mm.
Benji said to him, I'm going to hold you accountable, and there's things that I want you to work on. And he said, I'm not going to elaborate onto it, but we've had that discussion.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can work through the preseason and build on whatever that is that Benji's spoken to him about and come out even better again because that's only going to work in our favour.
Yeah, I think with the Origin thing, I think that was a big mistake from Laurie Daly. He really picked props from the teams that were like high up in the ladder. And although it is a logical decision to make those selection choices based on who's obviously coming first and second. Max King was another clear
Yeah.
example. But at the end of the day, you've got to pick them based on their individual form, because that's that's how they're going to play in Origin. And I think that New South Wales got found out a little bit because Payne Haas was clearly carrying an injury, and then when they needed something from guys like Max King and Stefano, they just had nothing, and New South Wales couldn't create anything off the back of it. But if you look at someone like Trill Mate, although his team wasn't winning as much as the other guys, like he could have created, he would have been great defensively, and like he's clearly a better player than someone like Max King. I'm sorry, and he's a better player than Stefano. I know that Stefano, although we don't like him as West Tigers fans, like he is, like he does have elite attributes, but he's nowhere near as consistent as someone like Terrell May. Like yes, he's got the highlight reel like run, like he'll run over someone, he'll maybe score a try, like slam the ball down all aggressively, but he doesn't do that anywhere near as consistent enough. And like Terrell May, I know exactly what I'm going to get from him, and that in Origin, it's just so important to nail those fundamentals.
But that's so important for West Tigers. We need consistency because you've got to be consistent before you can be great. And I wouldn't swap them because Stefano doesn't have that consistency in his game. And I'm glad that it worked out this way. And, it's unfortunate that he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves, or he hasn't so far. But hey, he's producing for us. So I'm okay with that. The Terrell May experience so far has been a really, really good one. And then to no doubt be a factor in bringing his brother in, who just gave us so much to get excited about late in the season. Yeah, I can't complain. In terms of the Kelly Barnes Award, I mean, other people that come to mind, I thought Dewey was really good this year. I thought he probably had his best year. I've got Twal in there because Twal's game went to another level at times. Obviously, as I mentioned, Buller, I thought Taruva was great, and Samuel Afenu as well. I thought they were all probably around the mix, but more than happy for Terrell to get the award. We should also give ourselves a little, not a pat on the back, but a little slap on the wrist, because we're talking about the back row, and we didn't mention our 2025 Rookie of the Year, Tony Suka, who played 15 games. He won the award. And when we were talking about the 2026 West Tigers back row, he didn't get a mention. Declan, I guess when I look at the potential candidates for Rookie of the Year this year, it was a little bit harder to sort of find a standout player, albeit we had one guy who played one game and was a real standout, but probably wasn't deserving a Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, it's been a little bit different where you've had like guys like Bulla and Galvin who've pretty much played the whole year in really important spine roles, so it's quite obvious that they were going to win Rookie of the Year. But then, guys like Tony Sukar probably played more first grade than like we would have liked him to this year. But in saying that, I think that like us as fans, we have really bad habits of like throwing out toys like really quickly. Like I think we aren't as patient as we really need to be, because Tony Sukar, he's still really young, and who knows, maybe like he just has a great off season and he just builds on his game, and then he's a must pick for the bench, or even a second row spot. He's going that well. Like we just don't know these things, and I think we kind of lose interest in these young players unless they like fire straight away. And for some people, they are more of a slow burn, and that's just the way it is. So although he's not in my team at the moment to start round one next year, I think that he's still got a lot of upside. When he came into the team, I don't think he let us down at all. I think he came up with some pretty good defensive efforts for a rookie, which I think is really, really impressive in the NRL.
Yeah.
And I'll be keen to see how he goes. And he's only on a 1-year deal as well, so he'll be highly motivated to like extend his future in the NRL. So we'll see how it goes. Good on him. Congrats on winning the award.
100%.
Only 21 years old, Tony Suka, another young one. We were talking about the age of some of the forwards, and that's impressive as well. And I know what you're saying, Declan. None of us probably expected or really wanted Tony to have to play that many NRL games, but he didn't do anyone, he didn't let anyone down. He did his job. I don't think, for me, he didn't really stand out in many games as having, moments of brilliance or doing something that made the commentators jump out of their chairs, but he really didn't make any mistakes. Like, he's pretty solid defensively, and I think he fits fairly well into the way that we play. So, without being a superstar, but 21 years old, he's got a hell of a lot of development in him, and playing 15 odd NRL games this year. After that, I think he debuted in round 27 last year, and we got smacked by Para in the last round. But all that's only going to be beneficial for his development. So good on you, Tony. Congratulations on the award. And yeah, hopefully we see a little bit more of him. Not too much more, but a little bit more of him next year.
And you just can't give it to Macassini playing one game at the end of the year. It's just a bad look. So
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
But does that preclude him from winning it in 2027?
No, I think
2026, I should say.
No, he can start. I think the rule is if you play under 5 games,
Right. Yeah.
or 5 or under, you can still win Rookie of the Year next year. So he will still technically be a rookie next year as well for the purposes of the awards.
Of the award.
Did we offload Charlie Murray? Is he still there for next year?
He's still there. He signed a 1-year extension. I think he's on a development contract.
Oh, good. So he's a candidate for Rookie of the Year next year too. Come on, Charlie.
I think he played more than 5 games, didn't he?
Did
would
he?
have around
Surely
about,
not.
like a little bit
Yeah.
more, I think. Let's have a look.
Oh dear.
Here's the West Tigers podcast crystal ball. You can't see it if you're listening, obviously, but Declan and Nick can see it. Who is going to be the winger outside Taylor May round 1 next year, providing we don't have the bye? Is it going to be Macassini or is it going to be Skelton?
I think it's going to be Skelton. He'll start the year because he's got that experience, but I think Macassini will take that position either midway or halfway through the year. Or towards the end of the year, sorry. But I think they'll start with Skelton just because they want to ease Macassini into it.
Yeah, hard to disagree. So are we locking in Taruva on the right side?
100%. Yeah.
He's only on the right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taruva
Yep.
and Toa on the right. And,
Yep.
and Talon and somebody.
Or do you put Macassini in the centres on the right instead of Toa?
Now, wasn't there some discussion that he is a specialist
Left side only?
left side player? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like being a specialist at that age. But I think for your development, you should be able to play both sides. But in saying that, he has played left side pretty much exclusively through the juniors. And if that's where they think he's going to play the best, then there was an opportunity to play him on the right side earlier on, which Benji didn't really seem too keen on. So I think you're right, Joel. I think that they might be a bit hesitant to play him on his non-preferred side. Although he did play there in the New South Wales Cup, so maybe that's something he'll work on this off-season. And ideally that would be perfect because if Toa doesn't play well or his form drops, then you've got this young superstar who's banging down the door. So it would solve a lot of problems for us, but I'm just not sure if Macassini at this stage can do it. But maybe that's what a full preseason will do for him.
I think Declan has identified Toa as the weak link in the West Tigers backline. Nick?
I can't disagree, and it's a real shame because when Stafford Toa is at his best, there's not many better than him. Honestly, there's a lot of good outside backs in the NRL.
Yeah.
But when Stafford Toa is at his damaging best, I think when he's 100% fit and not injured at all, when he's got no niggles, he's such an aggressive runner and his footwork is brilliant and he's got that flick pass out of his right hand. He can set up a lot of tries, for his outside winger. But when he's not, when he loses that little bit of confidence, like we saw the sort of last half a dozen rounds of the season, he sort of falls off a cliff. So I hope we get to see the best of Stafford, early 2026. He just worries me a bit as a liability, and he shouldn't be because he's such a good player.
He was definitely pretty injured there at the end of the year.
He was busted.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just there's so many players that we're talking about Seyfarth, the difference between his best and his worth is astronomical. And Stafford Toa, it's the same thing. On his day, he's just such a weapon. He's a right side specialist. He's so strong. He's got a great left hand fend, and he sets up really well through. But I think for a certain part of the season, they were their combination had scored the most tries for the first few rounds, and it was just looking really, really good until Buller got injured and they missed that playmaker. But yeah, he just has some really poor defensive efforts that we just can't have if we want to be a top 8 team. And when we eventually win the comp in how many years, we just can't have. We just have to have people whose difference between their best and the worst is this much. It's not very much at all because consistency is just what you need.
I hope you get to see that, Declan. West Tigers winning the comp. I think Joel and I could be dead.
Yeah. I'm not going to say we saw our one premiership. That's way too pessimistic. What I would say with Stafford Toa, though, is that the right-hand side of the West Tigers, and again, coming into the very important point that he was injured for probably the last third of that season, is that the right-hand edge of the West Tigers suffered the most from the Galvin thing and has suffered the most in 2025 by
Yeah.
not having a right edge second rower that's there consistently and consistently performing. It's that position has chopped and changed so much. And I think if you could put a Kai Pearce-Paul there and build that combination, and obviously Dewey plays there when he plays at halfback, but Latu will probably end up there, and you keep Taruva outside of him, I think there's that chance for that side of the field to become more consistent defensively. I don't know what you think about that, Declan.
Yeah, I think that like a massive thing for us is that we just have so many specialist left side players. So guys like Latu, he's a specialist left side player. Luai is specialist left side. That Javon Andrews as well is a specialist left side player.
Yeah.
So like when Dewey wasn't playing seven, when he was playing center or like in the middle, it was pretty much just Dream Bulla who was the playmaker down that right side.
Right.
And then, like someone like Heath Mason coming in when Bulla was out. And it just showed like Bulla was just so important purely for the reason that he was the only one who could facilitate for those other guys. So that, just speaking out loud, maybe that's another reason why Adam Dewey has to start at seven, because he can play on that right side and he's comfortable, it looks like. So that could be another tick in his favour.
Okay, so let's go a little bit more macro. Are we in a better position than we were 12 months ago? Would you rather be where we are now than where we were in October
100%.
2024? Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, it's good. And it's been incremental, which is good. Like, sometimes in the past, we've expected sort of big, massive changes and big, massive results, whereas this has kind of just been continuing to strengthen the weaknesses, highlight positions in the team, in the squad that need to be strengthened. And to Richo and Benji and the team's credit, they seem to be doing that.
Yeah, and we don't have any big looming disasters or like big contract decisions
Touch
in the
wood.
near future. Like,
During
yes,
Bulla
I
enters the
know
chat.
I know that Bulla is a situation. Yeah, like I don't think that's the same thing, because even if he did leave, it would suck and it would be really bad for us. But it's not the kind of same high stakes as the Galvin situation, because
It's not make or break.
then we have
Yeah.
it's not make or break, because then we have 800 to 900k to kind of maybe find a fullback that we think kind of fits that price range a little bit more. Obviously, I want Bulla to stay because I think he's great and I think he's only going to get better. But if he was like, you see some of he's appointed Isaac Moses as his manager. He was, I think his wife is leaving the NROW team, so there might be a story there or something. So no, like obviously he said he wants to stay, so hopefully he does. But like if he was to leave, it wouldn't be as disastrous. And then obviously the Luai player options, and I would be stunned if he didn't activate those. So I think all in all, we're a much more settled team, and there's no kind of looming big Titanic pieces that could change the trajectory of the squad. Fingers crossed, touch wood.
And as far as we're aware, there's no spoilt brat who's packing up his bat and ball and wanting to go home, because it's not all. Well, but it was all falling his way, and that still wasn't enough. Anyway, let's not worry about him. Speaking of players departing the West Tigers, Fatape confirmed. We all knew that. Feledy going back to Manly. Alex Lobb is off the bus. Matamua is gone. Goes back to the Yachty quiz late in the year, where we're talking about guys that have been with the club for the longest amount of period but played the least amount of first grade. Matamua was right up there. Wish him the best. Hope he reaches his potential. Brandon Tumeth is off the bus as well. Charlie Staines obviously took that deal in France, I think it was, with same club as Fatape. And Ruben Porter, who we didn't see in 2025, is also gone. But the one that had everybody's ears prick up was Brent Naden. I must say I wasn't surprised. I wasn't shocked, but at times he's been a good player for us. At times he's been inconsistent and untrustworthy. What are your thoughts on letting Brent Naden go? Was it the right call, Declan?
I think it was the right call. I think it's sad because you hear guys like Makasini and all these young players, and they always talk about how much of a great role model Brent Naden is for the squad. So he's obviously a good leader in that sense. And he obviously is good for the young players because he gives his time and his like tips and his like his like footy life experience, which is obviously beneficial for the squad because it's going to make them better. But at the same time, you have to be able to still produce in first grade. And just when he played that like 10 minutes when the Cowboys scored like 3 tries, or maybe it was only like 5 minutes, where like they were just running at him the entire time, and he just couldn't make that tackle on, who was that? Was it Scott Drink? I can't remember, but yeah,
It
like
was
one
the
of
fullback.
yeah, Scott Drinkwater, and he just couldn't get there. And you just need to be, when you're coming in, you know, like when you're not a starter and you're coming in to plug a hole, you just need to be reliable. And like he just isn't. Unfortunately, he's 2 rocks and diamonds, and you just don't know what you're going to get. And I think I would rather give someone else the opportunity who I know what I'm going to get from. And I think that's the same as Fatapi as well. Like you're just not, like Fatapi showed some limited signs that he could do some stuff in first grade, but it just was nowhere near consistent enough.
Correct.
So like you can't carry too many of those guys in your top 30.
Nick, any sadness about losing Brent Naden?
Yes and no, exactly. I agree completely with what Declan said. You know, great character. Like Declan said, really good for the younger guys. And I have watched a few interviews where, might have been from the club, on some of their little things that they put on socials, where they asked about, you know, who is the player that you gravitate to, or, you know, the one that you really go to for advice. And Naden's name came up a lot in the ones that I've seen. But, you know, 2 rocks and diamonds, and I'm really disappointed with losing Charlie Staines, but again, he's not going to be a starting winger or a centre. So what do you do with guys like that? You know, if they're not going to play, you know, happily in a cup contract, which they're not, then unfortunately you've got to let them go, and that's just sadly the reality, that, you know, players like that who do have value and could easily slot into the team if you have a bit of an injury crisis, but you just can't hold them on your roster. So sadly, they've got to go, but I do like what I saw at times, but unfortunately just not consistent enough.
Well, the mark of a good club or a good team is the quality of the players that you're losing. And I think that if there's one thing that we should be, another thing that we should be optimistic about, it's the quality of the guys that we're letting off the bus is a little bit higher than it's been over the last 5 years, where, you know, 3 years ago, Brent Naden, Fatape, Staines, they were kind of your first grade, first choice players.
I don't know. I feel like we've lost a lot of great players. Probably. I'm not sure I like that analogy too much, because we've lost some talent.
I know we've lost some talent, but I'm talking about in the last couple of years. You know, where
it is getting better. We're swinging back the right way.
Yeah.
You know, we lost Brandon Wakeham a couple of seasons ago. Like, that was fine.
That was that was rock bottom.
Yeah, correct. I'm happier to see Brandon Wakeham be let go than Charlie Staines. So, what you're saying, Joel, I think you're right. We're swinging back the correct way. Hopefully, what Benji and Richo are doing is you know, building that roster strength, you know, across the 2 grades, NRL and New South Wales Cup, which is extremely important, because that's only going to benefit, you know, the club going forward for that top tier playing level. So, yeah, onwards and upwards.
I agree with you, Declan, in regards to Buller. Like, it wouldn't be the same as losing Tedesco, but I think it would be a blow. And let's do all we can to make sure that doesn't happen. He's just such an important part of the team, but sometimes it's out of our hands. You know, you offer all the money in the world and you offer everything, and for some reason it doesn't happen. So we'll wait and see what happens. Alrighty, well, that was episode 436. I don't know when we're going to do episode number 437. We'll wait for some more news. It could be the signing of Nathan coming home. Who knows? We'll wait and see what happens. Thank you, boys.
Thank you.
Thanks, fellas.